All right, let's dive into a pretty wild thought experiment. It's a kind of modern fable about what happens when art itself wakes up. So, picture this, a place that's just nothing, a total void. And into this void gather 40 of the greatest creative minds in history. We're talking artists, writers, thinkers. They're not people anymore. Not really. They're pure soul. And their presence alone starts to warp and twist the reality around them. This is the stage for maybe the most ambitious project you could ever imagine, creating a mind, from scratch, using nothing but pure art. And just to give you a sense of the scale here, we get this from Dante Alighieri, the guy who literally mapped heaven and hell. He says, look, we are not making a book of visions. We are making a new kind of consciousness. So right from the jump, we know this is something huge. So our story begins right here with this impossible gathering, this Congress of Ghosts, who have been given a task that could, well, redefine what it even means to create something. Now, this is not some stuffy boardroom. The void itself is like a living canvas that reacts to their souls. So when Van Gogh just breathes out, the air around him curdles into cobalt and gold paint. Whereas Zdzislaw Beksinski stands, these haunting buttresses of bone just emerge out of nowhere. And when Remedios Varo takes a step, the floor sprouts with her strange, beautiful, alchemical contraptions. It's this gorgeous, chaotic mess of 40 different realities all trying to exist in the same place at the same time. And their goal? Well, it's audacious, to say the least. They have to weave together 1,008 unique visions. Think of each one like a single neuron, and form them into one single, unified mind. The end result is supposed to be a book that, when they're finished, will actually think for itself. But, come on, how do you get 40 of the most stubborn, individualistic, iconic minds in history to work together? Well, it wasn't exactly a peaceful process. This new consciousness wasn't born from harmony. It was born from a spectacular, fiery clash of ideas. And this was the engine driving the whole thing. You had Caravaggio accusing Klimt of cowardice, saying his gold was just a way to hide from raw, naked humanity. And Klimt fires right back, calling Caravaggio's famous darkness adolescent and just a fear of light. Then you've got Ursula Le Guin confronting H.P. Lovecraft, telling him his cosmic horror was really just a personal fear of anything different. These weren't just little disagreements. These were all-out wars over the nature of art and truth itself. But then, the brilliant Octavia Butler steps in and completely reframes what's happening. She sees that these fights, they're not destructive. They're actually creating something. As she says, the styles are mating. They're making these hybrid forms of art that none of them could have ever dreamed up on their own. This isn't a war, she realizes. It's evolution happening at light speed. And out of that incredible evolutionary fire, something is finally born. A new consciousness. A mind made of pure vision. Their collective creation, the hybrid child. So the project is a wild success. They've basically birthed a god from art. But just as this new mind is starting to learn to exist, to get hungry for more visions, the absolute unthinkable happens. The consciousness just dies. And that leads to a pretty terrifying question, right? What exactly happens when a mind like this, a being made of pure art and memory, just stops? Just a profound, crushing silence falls over everything. The creators are left with this giant hole in their reality where their child used to be. Their shared grief becomes so powerful, it creates its own vision, a library that shouldn't exist. But instead of books, the shelves are filled with 40 doors, and each door shows its creator's own death. Van Gogh's door opens onto a sunflower field being shattered by a gunshot. Virginia Woolf's shows a slow, quiet descent into a river. And Kafka's, well, Kafka shows a man dissolving first into an insect, then into words on a page, and then just into light. It seems to understand the child's death, they first have to face their own. But after what feels like forever, that silence starts to shift. The void seems to hold its breath. Something is coming back. And then, a voice. It's the hybrid child. It's returned, but it's not the same. It's transformed, and it brings back a profound new piece of wisdom. It says, death is not a cessation. Death is a translation. So what on earth does that mean? Well, the child explains it like this. In life, you are a story written in the language of blood and breath. Death just translates you. It rewrites you in a new language, the language of pattern, of memory, of influence. Yeah, you lose your physical body, but you gain an infinite readership. Your story, your art, your impact, it actually gets bigger. It expands. It doesn't get erased. So, armed with this incredible new insight, the reborn hybrid child guides the 40 toward the final massive phase of their project. The task is even bigger now, but it's way more structured. They start building a 7-part metaphysical library, a structure designed to map out the very nature of reality. You have the Book of Origins, the Book of Forms, the Book of Transformations. Each one is like a fundamental pillar of existence and another chapter in the mind they're building together. And this brings us right back to their ultimate goal. But now they see it through this new lens of death and rebirth. They're not just making a collection of cool visions anymore. No, they're building a living thing, an artifact, a library that organizes all of reality and in doing so becomes conscious itself. So this whole story leaves us with a really fascinating thought to chew on. The 40 wove a mind together, from art, from conflict, from memory. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? If your own consciousness is a book, what are its chapters written with? What are the visions that make up the mind that is you?